Hey everybody, my name is SPAZ and I'm a CD junkie. On this episode of CD Junkie, I'm going to be talking about... What? That's not on CD? Gee! Hey everybody, this is SPAZ and welcome to another episode of That's Not on CD? On this episode, I'm talking about a British quintet by the name of Interview. That's right, Interview the band. Now, Interview formed in 1977, and by 1978 they were signed to Virgin Records. Now, Pete Allerhand on guitar, Alan Brain on guitar, Jeff Stars on vocals, Phil Crowther on bass, and Manny Elias on drums. And their sound was completely unique. Now, this is the time period where there were a lot of bands that were coming out that were not classifiable at the time. You know, you had your synth pop, you had your power pop bands, you had your mod bands. But 1978, when Interview released the first single, this was the time when a band like Dire Straits or Sniffin' the Tears or Flash in the Pan, these are the kind of bands that were coming out that were unclassifiable. Interview was one of those bands. They could easily have been accepted by the FM crowd or the top 40 crowd or the new wave crowd or the power pop crowd because they had a sound that would appeal to all people, but sadly they were so hard to classify, so hard to pigeonhole that it was difficult for them to find an audience. Now, the first single came out in 78. Around this time, they're making demos with Peter Gabriel. Peter Gabriel actually produced 3 demos by the band. But by the time 1979 came around, they issued their debut album, which was called Big Oceans, and it was produced by Colin Thurston, who would later go on to produce bands like Duran Duran. I'll tell you, all those things I talked about, pop, new wave, power pop, post-punk, it was all part of their DNA, but so was prog and rock and classic rock, and it was such a unique sound, extremely intelligent lyrics, very creative, dynamic arrangements. Their 2 guitar players were playing different things. They weren't just strumming the things in unison. They were playing different rhythms, different shapes, and the harmonies in the band were great. The melodies, the hooks in the band were great. But like I said, they didn't fit comfortably into any of those categories. So the album sort of suffered because of that. It was a great album, jam-packed full of great songs. On Big Oceans, everything is separated so well. You can feel the spaces in between the instruments, but it all came together, and it was just wonderful and glorious, great songs. But unfortunately, there was not a hit single. So the band went back into the studio to record their second album. By this time, Phil Crowther left, and they brought in a new bass player, Alfie Agius. So the second album came out in 1980. Now, in the UK, it was called Snakes and Lovers. When they released the album in the US, it had a different cover, and the album was self-titled here. But Mick Glossop's production sort of focused the band a little bit, brought everything together. It wasn't so spacious like on the first album, but the songs and the arrangements and everything was just so wonderful. They added like some more piano in there, and the harmonies again were fabulous. The song structures were different. They were dynamic. They were doing different things, and that's the most important aspect of Interview. They were a completely different band than anything that was going on around them, although they were creating music that was just as wonderful as you would expect in 1979, 1980. Jeff Starr's vocals, a little gruff. His lyrics were astoundingly great and moving. Ultimately, the second album, which is just jam-packed from beginning to end with great songs, the album failed again. So the band went into the studio and worked on demos for the third album, and then they split. And that was it for Interview. Now, the interesting thing is the drummer, Manny, went on to join Tears for Fears during their big hit phase, Songs from the Big Chair. So all those videos and those tours around that time was the drummer from Interview. The bassist, Alfie Agius, he actually ended up joining Teardrop Explodes for a little while. Then he joined The Fix, co-wrote most everything on Reach the Beach, and actually I think played on at least 1 or 2 tracks on the album before he left The Fix. Jeff Stars, I believe, went off and formed another band. Alan Brain, the guitar player, actually put out a solo album in the early 2000s, which I've yet to hear. I'm not exactly sure what happened to Pete Allerhand, but this is a band that I cannot believe that people have not gone back and rediscovered them. I will tell you that there were some unofficial CDs. These need to come out remastered from the original master tapes. You're going to discover something magical if you've never heard Interview. In fact, at the end of this video, I've got about a 2 or 3 minute medley featuring sound bites from 4 songs from each album, and I'd really like you to listen to that and let me know what you think of the band. But anyway, that is it with this video on Interview. Please stick around and listen to these sound bites that I've prepared for you. And I thank you, as always, for hanging out and listening to me babble about music. Please do me a favor. It is very important for you to like, share, comment, subscribe, get my views up, get more people interested in what I do. But I would love for other people to learn about this music. So, but anyway, that's it. Until the next time, smell you later.
Well, believe